The situation in Sokoto state had reached a level that could no longer be ignored. For months, people across different towns and villages had lived with fear. Reports of bombings, sudden attacks, and violent threats had become more common. Some explosions happened near markets, others close to roads used by farmers and traders. Each incident left behind confusion, grief, and unanswered questions. Families were changing their daily habits. Parents stopped allowing their children to walk alone to school. Traders closed their shops earlier than usual. Religious gatherings became smaller, and night travel reduced sharply. Many people felt that life had become uncertain, and trust in safety was slowly fading. Security agencies were already present in the state, but the attacks continued. Local leaders raised alarms, and community elders spoke openly about the fear spreading among the people. Civil society groups and the media kept asking the same question: when would the federal government take stronger action? It was in this tense atmosphere that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu decided to visit Sokoto. The decision was not made for ceremony or celebration. It was a response to a growing security crisis that had touched many lives. The visit was planned as a working trip, focused on listening, assessment, and coordination. When the president arrived in Sokoto, security was tight. Soldiers and police officers were visible along major roads. The presence of federal forces showed the seriousness of the moment. Despite the heavy security, residents gathered at a distance, watching quietly. There was no cheering crowd, only faces filled with concern and expectation. The first part of the visit involved meetings with state officials. The president met with the governor, members of the State Executive Council, and traditional rulers. Each group shared its own view of the problem. Security reports were presented, showing patterns of attacks and possible links to wider criminal networks operating in the region. Traditional leaders spoke about the impact on local communities. They explained how fear was breaking social trust and slowing economic life. Farmers were afraid to go to their fields. Traders feared transporting goods. Young people were becoming restless, and some were at risk of being drawn into crime. Security chiefs then gave their own briefing. They talked about ongoing operations, arrests, and intelligence efforts. They admitted that the threat was complex and that it required better coordination, stronger intelligence sharing, and support from local communities. The president listened closely, asking direct questions and requesting clear answers. One of the most symbolic moments of the visit was the president's stop at a correctional facility in Sokoto. This visit was not meant to draw attention to any single inmate. Instead, it was meant to show that justice, security, and order were connected. The facility housed people accused or convicted of serious crimes, including those linked to violent activities. During the visit, the president inspected the conditions of the facility. He spoke with officials in charge and asked about overcrowding, security risks, and the welfare of inmates. He stressed that correctional centers must not become places where crime grows, but places where justice is served and reform is possible. He also reminded officials that prisons and detention centers play a role in national security. Poor conditions, weak control, or lack of oversight could turn such places into threats instead of solutions. His message was clear: every part of the system mattered. After leaving the facility, the president addressed a closed meeting with security commanders. The discussion focused on urgent steps to reduce attacks and protect civilians. He emphasized the need for better intelligence, faster response times, and stronger cooperation between federal and state forces. The president made it clear that the government could not allow violence to become normal. He stressed that citizens had the right to live without fear, regardless of where they lived. According to those present, he described security as the foundation of national development. Without safety, schools could not function, businesses could not grow, and unity would remain fragile. The visit also included a meeting with community representatives. These were not politicians, but ordinary people: traders, farmers, youth leaders, and religious figures. They shared personal stories of loss and fear. Some spoke of relatives injured in attacks. Others talked about businesses destroyed or abandoned. The president listened without interruption. He acknowledged their pain and admitted that government action sometimes came too slowly. He promised that their voices would not be ignored. While he did not make dramatic promises, he assured them that Sokoto was now a priority in the national security plan. As the visit came to an end, many residents remained cautious. They had heard promises before, but the presence of the president, the seriousness of the meetings, and the focus on security gave some hope. For others, hope would only come when attacks stopped and daily life returned to normal. The visit to Sokoto marked a moment of attention and responsibility. It showed a government under pressure to act and a people demanding protection. Whether the visit would lead to lasting change was a question only time could answer. But one fact was clear: the crisis in Sokoto had reached the highest level of concern, and the nation was watching closely. As attention remained fixed on the worsening security situation in Sokoto, national discussion slowly shifted toward another sensitive issue: how the federal government was handling matters of high-profile detention and national security. This issue had been debated for years, but rising violence across the country gave it new urgency. Within government circles, the position was clear. Officials believed that cases involving separatist movements, terrorism, or threats to national unity could not be treated like ordinary criminal matters. According to senior security advisors, such cases required strict federal oversight, controlled environments, and careful legal handling. The government's argument was based on experience. In the past, transfers of high-risk detainees or poor control over sensitive cases had led to unrest, protests, and sometimes violence. There were concerns about prison breaks, external influence, and attempts to turn detention facilities into political symbols. For these reasons, federal authorities insisted that some detainees must remain under the custody of national security agencies in Abuja. Officials explained that this approach was not meant to punish individuals unfairly or silence political views. Instead, they said it was about preventing situations that could worsen insecurity. When violence was already spreading across different regions, any spark could trigger wider chaos. Security agencies stressed that intelligence reports played a major role in these decisions. They monitored communication networks, funding sources, and public reactions. If intelligence suggested that moving a detainee or changing custody arrangements could lead to unrest, the federal government would act cautiously. Legal advisors to the government also defended this approach. They pointed out that national security laws allowed the federal government to take control of cases that affected the entire country. According to them, the aim was to ensure that trials, detentions, and legal processes were not disrupted by public pressure or regional tensions. However, these decisions did not go unchallenged. Human rights groups, legal activists, and opposition figures raised concerns about transparency and fairness. They argued that prolonged detention or restricted access to detainees could weaken trust in the justice system. Some warned that heavy-handed security measures could deepen division instead of healing it. The government responded by stating that security and rights must be balanced carefully. Officials admitted that this balance was difficult, especially during periods of high tension. They insisted that courts were still involved and that legal processes had not been abandoned. Behind closed doors, President Tinubu held meetings with top security and legal officials. These meetings focused on how to manage sensitive cases without fueling public anger or political instability. The president reportedly asked for clear timelines, regular legal reviews, and better communication with the public. One major concern discussed was perception. In a country with deep ethnic and regional diversity, security decisions could easily be misunderstood. The administration understood that silence or poor explanation could lead to rumors, misinformation, and anger. As a result, officials were instructed to speak more carefully and clearly about government actions. Another issue was international attention. Nigeria's handling of security cases was often observed by foreign governments, international organizations, and global media. The administration did not want Nigeria to appear weak, lawless, or careless. At the same time, it did not want to be seen as ignoring legal standards. Security chiefs emphasized that Abuja remained the safest and most controlled environment for managing high-risk detainees. The city had stronger surveillance, better coordination among agencies, and faster access to federal courts. From their point of view, central control reduced the risk of sudden incidents. Within the broader security strategy, the government also reviewed correctional facilities across the country. There were concerns that overcrowded prisons, poor funding, and weak security could turn detention centers into threats. Escapes, riots, and radicalization inside prisons were risks that could no longer be ignored. The administration began linking detention policy to wider reforms. Officials spoke about improving prison conditions, training staff, and using technology to monitor facilities. They argued that justice did not end with arrest, but continued through detention, trial, and possible rehabilitation. For many citizens, these discussions felt distant from daily suffering. People wanted immediate peace, not policy debates. Yet the government believed that long-term stability required difficult decisions that might not be popular in the short term. By the end of this phase, one message stood out from the federal government: national security would not be left to chance. The administration believed that strong control, careful planning, and firm decisions were necessary to prevent further breakdown. Whether this approach would reduce violence or deepen public distrust remained uncertain. What was clear, however, was that the Tinubu administration had chosen a path of central authority and caution. In a time of rising fear and uncertainty, the government believed that as events continued to unfold within Nigeria, attention slowly spread beyond its borders. News of rising insecurity, strong federal control, and the government's firm approach to national unity began to attract international interest. Analysts, foreign media, and policy observers followed developments closely, especially as Nigeria remained one of Africa's most influential nations. Security challenges in Nigeria were not new to the global community. For years, foreign governments had monitored issues related to terrorism, separatist movements, and organized crime within the country. What made this moment different was the scale of tension happening at the same time across several regions and the firm posture adopted by the federal government. In diplomatic circles, Nigeria's situation was often discussed as part of a wider global problem. Many countries were dealing with similar threats: internal division, violent groups, and public distrust of institutions. Because of this, Nigeria's response was viewed not only as a local matter but as a case study in how large, diverse nations tried to maintain stability. In the United States, political analysts and former officials discussed Nigeria mainly through policy reports and media commentary. Donald Trump, known for his strong views on security and national control during his time as president, had often supported firm government action against violence and disorder in general public statements. While there was no official comment directed at Nigeria, observers noted that his past positions favored strong leadership when national unity was under threat. American policy experts pointed out that Nigeria's challenges reflected the difficult balance between freedom and security. They explained that governments under pressure often chose strict measures to prevent collapse. Whether those measures succeeded depended on leadership, communication, and respect for law. European observers took a cautious tone. Human rights organizations continued to stress the importance of transparency, due process, and dialogue. At the same time, security experts acknowledged that governments facing serious threats could not rely on soft approaches alone. Many reports described Nigeria as standing at a crossroads. International media coverage of Tinubu's government became more frequent. Some reports described the administration as firm and determined, while others raised concerns about public trust and political tension. The president was often portrayed as a leader trying to hold a fragile system together under intense pressure. Within Nigeria, reactions to international attention were mixed. Some citizens felt encouraged that the world was paying attention. Others rejected foreign opinions, insisting that Nigeria's problems could only be understood by those living through them. There was a strong feeling among many that national decisions should not be influenced by outside voices. Tinubu's administration remained focused on its core message. Government officials repeated that Nigeria's unity was non-negotiable. They argued that no country could develop while facing constant internal threats. According to them, security had to come first, even if it required unpopular decisions. Behind the scenes, the government increased diplomatic engagement. Nigerian envoys briefed foreign partners on security strategies and legal frameworks. They emphasized that actions taken were guided by law and national interest, not personal or political revenge. The aim was to reassure allies and prevent misunderstandings. At home, public debate intensified. Newspapers, radio programs, and online platforms were filled with discussions about the government's direction. Supporters praised the administration for showing strength and refusing to bend under pressure. Critics warned that force without trust could lead to deeper division. Religious leaders and elder statesmen called for calm. They urged citizens to avoid inflammatory speech and warned that careless words could worsen tension. Many stressed that while government had a duty to protect, citizens also had a duty to preserve peace. The youth played a major role in shaping public opinion. Social media became a space for both hope and anger. Some young Nigerians demanded faster results and visible improvement in safety. Others called for dialogue, fairness, and reform. The divide in opinion showed how deeply the issues affected society. As months passed, the international spotlight did not fade. Nigeria's actions continued to be studied, compared, and debated. Some foreign analysts predicted that firm control would restore order over time. Others feared that unresolved grievances could resurface later if not addressed properly. Tinubu himself remained largely measured in public appearances. When he spoke, he emphasized responsibility and patience. He avoided dramatic language and focused on long-term stability. His message was that leadership required difficult choices and the courage to stand by them. The government began to link security efforts with economic and social plans. Officials explained that safety was not an end in itself, but a foundation. Without it, investment would leave, jobs would disappear, and hope would fade. Stability, they argued, was necessary for progress. By the end of this phase, Nigeria stood under both national and global observation. The country was being judged not only by its problems, but by how it chose to respond to them. Every decision carried weight, both at home and abroad. The moment was defining. It tested leadership, institutions, and the patience of the people. While opinions differed sharply, one truth was widely accepted. Nigeria was facing a serious challenge, and the path chosen during this time would shape its future for many years to come.